Hi. I want you to think about some of the apps you use almost every day on your phone. Snapchat, Uber, TikTok, all household names that are now considered big tech, dream companies for so many young engineers, so attractive, so exclusive to myself as a freshman here at Michigan. But if you sat next to Evan Spiegel 10 years ago and he told you about his app where you could send a picture and it would immediately disappear when it arrived on the other person's phone, you'd probably say something like, "Evan, that sounds really stupid." The same thing you'd say to someone pitching an app where teens lip sync to songs and dance, or where instead of calling a cab, you hail a random local driver to come pick you up in their used Corolla. That's because new ideas sound stupid. If they didn't, they'd probably already exist. So that idea you've been noodling on, the one you preface with, "Oh, it's probably stupid, but," might actually be a great one. In retrospect, all these companies are so inevitable, so obvious, but at the time, they were just a couple of people thinking, "This could be cool. Let's give it a try." No elaborate business plan or idea of where it was going to take them. Luckily, I said these same words myself a few years ago when I decided to start my first company in my senior year of college. I embraced looking stupid in pursuit of what I really wanted to do. And by the end of this talk, I really hope to make you all just a little bit more comfortable doing that yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of these stupid ideas came from a huge setback in my life. 6 years ago, when I was actually just a few blocks from here, I lost my dad to suicide. It was immensely hard, and what had felt like a great start at college turned into a complete loss of direction. Nothing felt normal anymore, and everything felt pointless. However, during those months of pain and numbness, I felt like the curtain was kind of unveiled on how many people are truly affected by this epidemic. And the more I talked to, the more I wanted to do my part in spreading awareness. The only issue was that I had no idea where to start. Anxiety and depression were relatively new concepts to me, and this was my first time seeing a therapist. So I wasn't exactly your resident mental health expert, but I do remember clearly thinking, I'm just gonna give this a try. So I found the logo that my dad had made for his homemade beer, and I just put it on a t-shirt. Simple as that. His beer was called Searle Special, and that just became my awareness campaign. And 4 years later, I was actually still running Searle Special campaigns. I loved it so much. But we expanded from just shirts. We did hoodies and long sleeves too, which was cool. Seeing people rep these designs had such an outsized impact on my own mental health. Searle Special was my first time creating and selling something online, and we ended up raising more than $10,000 for mental health research. This seemingly silly idea, simple idea that I ran with, ended up becoming my crowning and proudest achievement here at Michigan. The only issue was that, although I loved selling merchandise, it had absolutely nothing to do with my computer science degree here. And so I kept thinking, like, how can I use that? What can I do with that to make a difference? And So I was noodling on this problem that I had seen at university therapy, which was, it took a super long time to get a therapist, but it also took a long time between sessions. So much could happen between the times that you saw your therapist. And I hated that. If I had a bad day in the middle, but I had a good day the day I was seeing my therapist, I would be like so excited. I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. And then a week later, I'm like, I'm not doing well. And I just wanted to create a way to log that, to record all these things that I was going through, and get to my therapist and be like, yeah, here's how I'm doing, here's how my week was, not just here's how today has been. So I talked to all my friends about this idea, and I called it Wellnest. It was a slightly larger stupid idea. One thing turned into the next, and I found myself with 3 co-founders, a pitch deck, and a super simple website. I'm not sure how I got there, to be totally honest, but at the exact same time, I received an offer from one of the big tech companies I was so excited about while here at Michigan too. It was a super hard decision. I had never built an app before. We had never worked together as a team, and we certainly did not have a business plan. But I had gotten here based on these stupid ideas, silly ideas, and my team was all in. So we decided to just go for it. And from that day on, we were trying to understand what we could build, how we could help. We got all these people on campus in focus groups to understand how they dealt with their mental health issues and how they wanted to better do that. We also met with therapists over Zoom across the country, understanding their perspective on this. We gathered for countless late nights discussing what to build and ideating. How could we really help here? What could we do? And eventually what we saw was this huge lack of outlets for students to talk about what was going on in their heads. And journaling was kind of an obvious answer here, but every time we talked to students about journaling, they were like, well, A, I don't know what to write about, and B, it's really boring. And so that became Wellnest, a guided journaling app that was supposed to be focused on fun, anti-boring. And from that day on, we were relentlessly committed to turning this dream into a reality. So we do this loop where we would build, release it out to people, and get feedback to know what to do on the next build. And this is essentially, for those who don't know, how you get better at doing anything. Want to make music? Do this loop. Want to become an illustrator? Illustrate, get it out there, see how it sticks, and keep going. This is the loop that you have to do. I call it the "is this stupid" loop, because with each iteration, you're getting closer and closer to figuring out whether it's a truly stupid idea or something stupidly great. You want to create until you resonate. Keep creating. You can see how many iterations we tried here over the years. Some were great, some were not so great, but every time we look at the last iteration and be totally embarrassed by it. But that was a good thing, because it meant that the loop was alive and well. We were taking people's feedback and integrating that in each version. And that last point is really important, because without people in here, none of these iterations would have actually been possible. So not only did we have to know, how do we actually build this thing, but also how do we get people into the loop? And that was a whole other process of trial and error. We posted in UMich Facebook groups, mostly to no avail. We made shirts for our users, and we worked with therapists that were on TikTok to spread the word out. Some efforts worked and some didn't, but what was cool is that every new user was a direct result of us pushing on that ball to get people in and use the app. We moved to San Francisco, we kept working on the app, and eventually we launched on the App Store, which was a super, super cool moment. This Twitter account that I had created to document our journey, to talk about the highs and lows, actually started to garner some attention from investors. And that's actually where our first investors came from, were through Twitter DMs. One of them's actually in this room, shout out Turner. And it was super cool. We celebrated, we raised money, and it felt like this big crowning moment. But I wish I could tell you that this was the start of this $1 million business that we figured out overnight. But in reality, this is glitch. It's not always like that. We worked on Wellnest for over a year, trying all these different angles and iterations. But in reality, it never really took off. We couldn't quite figure it out. Maybe it was a stupid idea after all. We decided to go back to the drawing board, but in that process, my co-founders left one by one. And at this point, it was just me. And I don't really know what kept me going, but what I will stress is how important it is to keep people around you who will support you even when it makes them look stupid. If you're gonna go on this crazy journey, find people crazy enough to cheer you along. One of them at this time shared this graph with me that helped demystify a lot of the startup process for founders. And it kind of depicts here, that journey, and a lot of what it looks like from the outside. So in the beginning, you have this huge wave of excitement. Someone writes about your startup, and you have all these eyeballs on it. People are using your product. You post that on your Instagram story. People are sliding up clap emojis. You feel amazing. You're a rock star. You have people in your freshman year engineering class saying, hey, how can I help? You're like, wow, this is awesome. But that novelty eventually wears off, and you're left with you and your team looking at each other like, how do we do this? And it really turns to be that creation loop, that trying, failing, picking yourself back up again, and doing it again. I spent way too much time in that trough of sorrow just hypothesizing, researching, things that someone afraid of a second failure would do. And if you fail and you want to hear one thing, it is do not do that. You have to create. and create until it resonates with others is the goal. So that's what I tried. Over the last year, I've built a bunch of different apps, not worrying about whether they were going to fail or not. I built a social walking app, an audio collaboration app for musicians. I built an app where you could chat with other fans while watching a live sports game. I tried and failed at a lot of different ideas that probably sounded stupid to my friends. But what I did get really good at was building apps. And that let me go through that creation loop that much faster. So I could say, okay, I'm going to build an app this week. And by the end of the week, I could see whether there was a nugget there or not. And if not, that was okay. I took my learnings and I moved on. But what was cool was that in August, I stumbled upon possibly the silliest, stupidest nugget I had ever seen. I saw this TikTok of this guy where he was taking pictures of his outfits and using a new iOS feature to cut them out and put them into his Notes app. It was so perfectly absurd. I loved it. Did Apple build this feature so that people would be cataloging their outfits? Absolutely not. Apple probably had no idea what people were going to use this feature for. And that's another reason it's super cool to release your work early, because when you give it to the masses, they have a lot more creativity than just you or your team. So you can see and have all these new ideas sparked from just letting people interact with your product. And that's exactly what happened to me. I saw this wave of excitement and expression on this tool, and I thought to myself, that is awesome. What else could these cutouts be used for? So I tweeted about this, and I mentioned that it would be awesome if you could use them in iMessage. So I spent the next couple nights not sleeping, just working on this tool, this app, and I handed it to my girlfriend a couple days later, where she said, Tommy, this is cool. I like the process of importing the photo from Photos and putting it into the app and then going to the extension and then sending it as a sticker, but I'd really like to just take a picture right in the extension. And boom, my light bulb moment. I'm so glad I gave it to her early before it was perfected, because that same thing happened again. And over the next few days, I built Cutouts, which is an iMessage app that let you take a picture and drag it into the conversation as a reaction. It was super cool. I made a few TikToks about it, and over the next few days, I had over 120,000 downloads and over 800,000 pictures taken in the app. It was amazing. It was magical. It was easily the most successful product that I had ever worked on, and it all came from a silly, stupid-sounding idea. It was my first big uptick in a really long time, and maybe it was just a wiggle of false hope, or maybe I'm super close to the promised land. Truthfully, I'll only know by continuing to pursue these stupid ideas and figuring it out along the way. Cutouts was a huge win for me, but now I just see it as a stepping stone onto something much, much bigger. So this process, this loop, will continue. So create until it resonates. One of my favorite sayings. No matter your craft or how much experience you have, none of that matters until you go out there and take that big, scary step. You'll fail a lot in the process, and you'll look stupid for a really frighteningly long time until you don't. So stay hungry and go chase those stupid ideas. You never know where they might take you. Thanks.